Noticed I'm looking a bit put together. I'm looking a bit formal, you know, because today we are talking about interviews, how to go for how to like prepare for an interview, what to do in an interview, what to do after an interview, what to do before an interview, all the good stuff. I went through the college application process. As I hope you know, I'm not an admissions person or whatever. Sikuenda University of Admissions Councils. I went to University of YouTube and admissions process. That made no sense. But yeah, I had, out of the 14 schools I applied to, I had 6 interviews. I had one for Princeton, one for Brown, one for Dartmouth, one for University of Pennsylvania, one for Harvard, and there's one more I'm forgetting. No, so I had 5 interviews. If I remember one more, I'll just mention it. And so that means I attended a fair share of interviews. Out of the 5 schools I interviewed for, I got into 3, which is, you know, 3 out of 5 is like 60%. So that's good enough for me to at least low-key know what I'm talking about. So what to do before an interview? Most of these things are going to be like before an interview, then I'll tell you what to do during, then after. So let's get into it. First thing to do before an interview is your research. Almost everything before an interview is related to research. So number 1, you need to research the university itself. You need to know basic things about the university. Like go into the website and read about it, read about the major you want to apply for, read about like a few clubs you would like to join. Not until like you memorize the school song and like the dean and the board of directors. Just know important information about the university so that you're not surprised by questions like, why do you want to attend Yale? If you did get into Yale, what major would you pick? What would you do with that major? What clubs would you join? Questions like that, so that you don't say, oh, when I go to Yale, I'll do aeronautical engineering, but there's no aeronautical engineering at Yale. Number 2, research your interviewer. This is so important. Interviewers are human beings, and like they'll tell you, or rather they'll give you the email of the person you're supposed to interview. And so literally just Google the person. I Googled each of my interviewers, and what that does, it prepares you for the type of person you're about to meet so that you're not surprised when you meet them. And number 2, it's so that you can find a common ground with that person that you can talk about during the interview. So for example, one of my interviewers did biomedical engineering and came back to Kenya almost immediately after his master's. And so at the time I was pursuing engineering, so I was like, oh, how was engineering for you at this university? Why did you decide to come back to Kenya? Isn't there more opportunities for a biomedical engineer in the US than in Kenya? And he told me a lot of things that I didn't know about, that brought new perspective into like my thinking, and also it provided a common ground for us when we were talking, so the conversation could flow well. Prepare questions to ask your interviewers. So obviously you know at an interview that you'll be asked a lot of questions, but what you might not know is that you have the opportunity to ask questions. So as you're talking to the person, as they're asking you questions, you could ask a question in between, but most of the time what I found is at the end, after they finished interviewing you, they'll ask you, do you have any questions for me? Is there anything you would like to know from me, either about the university and stuff like that? So prepare questions to ask them. And obviously don't ask stupid questions that you can get the answer from Google. You know, don't ask them, does Cornell have financial aid? Like literally, Cornell has financial aid. Why are you wasting their time? Ask questions that are idiosyncratic, vocabulary, which means they are like specific to that person. So like it's an economics major, then you're asking them, what research did you do in medicine? You see, they were in economics, how would they do medicine research? And obviously don't ask personal questions. Don't ask them like, why did you divorce your wife? Oh, shit like that. Don't. I hope it's obvious that you're not supposed to do that. Ask them questions like, oh, what was your best experience at Dartmouth? Oh, what's your favorite memory about your time in Colombia? Or what was your favorite extracurricular activity at Amherst? Things like that are very specific to the person, you see, and can provide common ground. So the person would be like, oh, at Amherst I was in the consulting group, and then you'd be like, oh my gosh, wow, I always wanted to learn about consulting. What did you do? What avenues did it provide for you after school? And you can continue the conversation from that point. Next thing, number 4, I think, is practice. You need to practice an interview. So it doesn't have to be like you're memorizing a script. I didn't ever memorize a script. What I did is I got someone to like ask me these stereotypical questions like, oh, tell me about yourself. That's the worst question ever. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your interests. Tell me about your family. And I could practice off of them so that when I'm at the interview, I'm not there. My name is Sandra, and I'm from Kenya, and I want to go to your university. You see what I'm trying to say? If you've practiced with someone, at least you have an idea of how to answer the questions, and you are less likely to make like you're less likely to make conversational mistakes and allows. You know, when you are trying to say something but you keep saying that's not the best way to carry a conversation. So practicing will help you be comfortable in an interview setting and be prepared for like one-on-one conversation. And you might need to hold eye contact, which people find a bit weird. I do too. If you've ever noticed, like I always look around, I don't look directly at the camera. So you'll need to practice how to have eye contact for a few seconds. You know, look at them, look away a bit, look at them. See, at the whole time you are looking at them, and the whole time you are looking away. Don't be weird. Don't be weird, you know. But make sure you don't memorize answers. Don't make it sound forced, because it's supposed to be a conversation. It shouldn't be forced. So don't memorize answers. Have an idea of what you're going to say, but don't memorize. The 5th thing is go through your application one more time and think about what you want to be highlighted by the interviewer. In your application, you probably highlighted a couple of things. So using myself as an example, I highlighted woman in STEM. Mainly woman in STEM was my like shtick, you know. Actually, African woman in STEM was my shtick. So when I went to the interview, I wanted to bring out a more conversational, bubbly side of me. I wanted my interviews to humanize my application, because going through my application, I came off a bit like this person who just does academics, does extracurriculars, gets the grades, you know, all those things. Like I felt like I was just checking boxes, and like my personality as like a bubbly, humorous, sarcastic person didn't come out, and I wanted that to come out in my interviews. And so most of my interviews were actually conversations. The one I had for Princeton was with a guy who owns like a huge chain of restaurants in Kenya. And like when you research these people, you won't be surprised. Like when I found out the guy, like he owns like big restaurants in Kenya, like big, like chains, like yenye iko all the malls in Nairobi iko. So most of my interview was talking about the logistics of starting a restaurant in Kenya, which was so interesting, because like I've never thought about how, let's say, a road is being built. Let's say Mombasa Road is being built in front of a restaurant, and how that restaurant is essentially dead. It's now like leaking millions of Kenya shillings. So that was interesting to talk about. My Harvard interview, we talked about politics a lot. Literally, we talked about politics in Kenya a lot, which was interesting. I've never been a person into politics, but like I had enough knowledge to carry a conversation. Be conversant with current events in your country, in the world, so that you can have a conversation about it. Obviously, the interview will be focused on you and the school, but you'll also have conversations about current events. So like right now, the US elections are a big deal. So if your interviewer is, let's say, a person who's living in the US right now, that has probably been a big part of their past couple of months. And it might come up in conversation, which is a bit risky because we all know how politics is. But yeah, it might come up. You might talk about COVID. Oh my God, COVID is like the biggest thing. The new vaccine. If you're applying for something like pre-med or biomedical engineering, like 90% the chance will be like, oh, what do you think of the new vaccine? Or what do you think of COVID? What do you think of flattening the curve? What do you think developing countries can do to improve their COVID whatever, you see. So be conversant with relevant events. Not that you know who is the head of WHO, who sits on the board of WHO, so that you know all the ingredients in the Pfizer vaccine, but like know at least the company's name. It's Pfizer or something like that. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. It's some big pharmaceutical company. Maybe the person works in pharmaceuticals and you can talk to them about that. There are so many ways to carry a conversation, and being relevant being conversant with relevant events will help. Be ready for common questions that are at an interview. You know, be ready for questions like, so tell me about yourself. Go online and find a website that lists questions. I found the one I used was by Prep Scholar, and I'll link a few down in the description box if you want to check them out. Questions like, oh, what are your hobbies? What are your interests? What's your family background? What do you like to do for fun? What do you do every day? How is school? How is home? Things like that are a bit common. But be ready for also curveball random questions. A few random questions I got were, if I could be an animal for a day, what would I be? If I could be president of Kenya for a day, what would I do? What else was I asked? I was a bit weird, a bit unexpected. I can't remember right now, but be ready also for curveball questions, because they obviously know you're preparing for this interview, so they need to slide in a few questions. Because if you've been answering the questions smoothly and then they throw you a curveball and you're unable to think on your feet, that also says something about you, you know. So be ready to think on your feet and like be ready for commonly asked questions. Especially that one for tell me something about yourself. Hey, be ready for it. Be ready. Last point for what to do before an interview is please. Number one, dress appropriately. Make sure you have an outfit planned. This one is kind of during an interview stroke before. Make sure you have an appropriate outfit planned. I know it's my dress, my choice, okay? But like, don't show up in like a tube top that like shows your bra straps and your like boobs are hanging out and your stomach is hanging out, and a mini skirt that when you cross your legs, your booty is hanging out. Like, this society is very interesting to live in, because it's like my dress, my choice, but then you're going for an interview and the first impression you make is very important. Like, if you're a guy, you know, wear a nice button-down shirt, some jeans, some khakis, some loafers. Not much if you're a girl. Wear like a cute shirt, like the shirt I'm wearing is cute, you know. It's still like feminine with like the lace, but like gonna cleavage kidogo, but not too much, you know. Some statement earrings to keep your personality in there. I have my hair looking cute. I could brush it a bit better, but you know, just dress appropriately. Yes, that's all I'll say. Dress appropriately. In that same vein, if it's going to be online, make sure you have the software downloaded. If it needs to be Zoom, make sure you have downloaded Zoom, you've updated it. If you need Google Meets, Google Hangouts, Google Teams, Microsoft Teams, whatever software it's going to be on, make sure you have it downloaded. Make sure you have it updated. Make sure your phone is charged or your laptop is charged. Make sure you have a quiet space to take your interview. Make sure you have a background that's appropriate. Like, my background is fine, but like if I was doing an interview today, I would actually have it on a plain wall, like this plain blue wall. I would have it there. Make sure there are no like people crisscrossing in the background. It's relatively quiet, stuff like that. Make sure you have bundles or Wi-Fi or internet that you can use reliably during that time, because first impressions are important. If you have all the software ready, you will be on time. I actually recommend, if you're going to do an online interview, be in the meeting 5 minutes before. Like, you know how in Zoom you can enter a meeting room before the meeting actually starts? Be there 5 minutes before, so that you can calm down, drink some water, tell God, please help me, send a few prayers above, you know, things like that. Make sure you have your mask, make sure you have your sanitizer, make sure you know where the place is. For one of my interviews, I got lost. But I wasn't late because I reached there 30 minutes before, so I had like 20 minutes to get lost. So make sure you know the place. Google Maps is your friend. If you've never been to that place before, go there before the interview so that you can know the route, so that you can know the matatus you need to take. Don't be late. Being late is very, very bad and it says a lot about you if you're not punctual. And like, you might be like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm never punctual. But like, I'm never punctual, sorry, I'm never late, I'm usually punctual, it's just this time. But like, they don't know you, they're never going to see you again, and then one time they met you, you are late. So you see how saying you're never late doesn't help you in that situation. But those are like a group of things, I don't know how to name them. During the interview, let's talk about what to do during the interview. Okay, so you get there at that coffee shop, you're seated, you're nervous. Ama, you're in your house, you're nervous, you're wondering, Sister Jesus, why? You know, take a deep breath, take it. Remember all the hard work you've put in, remember all the time you've put in, and just be chill, be easy, don't be anxious. I know it's hard not to be anxious, but take a deep breath. Remember how far you've come, remember how far you have to go, and all the great things you're going to achieve, and be calm. Being calm is very important. When you're calm, you're able to think on your feet, you're able to come up with good responses, you're able to make coherent sentences, and you're able to just be chill. You know, if they make a joke, laugh. You know, okay, laugh respectably, don't laugh. No, we're not in the ghetto here. Okay, we're not in the ghetto. Just like okay, not like that, Jesus, but just like, you know what I'm trying to say. Hey, let's now start. Your phone should be not on the table. What I used to do is I used to put my phone on vibrate, and I used to put it under my thigh, so that if anyone needs to call me for an emergency, I can feel it vibrate, but it's not on the table distracting me. Don't pick a call in the middle of the interview. That's rude. Don't go on social media in the middle of an interview. That's rude. Don't you go to a restaurant and then they've ordered food, and then you're like, oh, can I take a picture? I know we're the generation of social media, but Jesus, can you go one meal without taking a picture? Relax. Your followers really, they won't panic, okay? It's you panicking. But yeah, tying into food. So this is like, and I don't know what kind of opinion this is, but like for myself, please don't eat during the interview. Like, have you ever tried eating and talking to someone and make it look good? Like, I don't know about you guys, but watching myself eat, like, no. Like, imagine they ask you a question, then at that moment you put something in your mouth, then you're doing that awkward thing when you're like, so what I think is, don't eat. I went for an interview where they ordered food, like dead ass breakfast, and all I took was like a sip of coffee the whole time because I was nervous. And like, yeah, so like if you can get a coffee or like a tea, that's good, and you can like sip demurely, but like eating is a bit weird for an interview. It's a bit strange. Maybe you can eat after, but like I find it a bit strange to eat and talk at the same time. And then you make the mistake of like spitting something out, then it's awkward when you like spit of like a piece of bacon is on the table. No, please don't eat. Next is carry the conversation, my friends. Continue the conversation. Don't answer with monotone responses. Don't be asked a question then you say yes. So how are you liking school in COVID? No. Like, what? Elaborate. It's a conversation. Make it flow. Give stories as you go. Don't like give too much stories, but like make it interesting. Make the conversation interesting. Don't just be boring, you know. Don't be boring. Don't be boring. Don't do it, honey. Don't do it, you know. And as you talk, make sure you're positive. Make sure you bring yourself out in a positive light. There are questions they'll ask you, like, what is the biggest thing you regret doing? Don't say my biggest regret is sneaking in shisha into my high school and jumping over the gate to go for a funky. Like, that probably is the worst thing, but like reel it in, you know. But like, again, don't be those irritating people who are like, oh, the worst thing about myself is that I care too much, and like I always feel so much passion for things that I end up like doing too much. It's just because, you know, just because I care too much. Like, no one likes that type of person. Like, be honest and be positive, but like not too honest and not too positive. It's easy, Cindy. I'm so sorry. That's just interviews. It's hard. Let's move on. And then if you get a curveball question, like if they sneak in those curveballs, don't lie. Just be honest. And they might ask you a question where they like know the answer, but they want to see what you'll say. And then if you lie, they'll be like, she a liar. She a liar. She a cheater. She cannot be trusted. Okay, that was a bit extra, but like, don't lie. And if you don't know an answer, take time to think. Just be like, oh, I'm not sure of that. Can I have a minute to think? Or oh, I can't come up with any answer right now, what do you think? You know, like, accept that you don't know. No one knows everything, and it shows something about your character, something good, when you're able to accept, oh, I don't know, could you tell me more? Or, oh, I don't know, maybe I could read about it. You don't always have to know the answer, you know. Lastly, be yourself. If you're a funny person, make an appropriate joke. If they make a joke, as I've said before, laugh. Just let your personality shine through. Don't think you have to be a type of way to get into a type of school. If a school rejects you for being you, then that school wasn't for you. You get. Just be yourself. Allow the conversation to flow. Allow your personality to come through. And it will show in the interview that you're an amazing person. I'm sure many of you are. You're all amazing. If you have an interview anytime soon, you can get it. Ace those interviews. Lastly, what to do after the interview. I think there's only 2 things to do after the interview. Number 1, immediately after the interview, tell the person thank you. Tell them thank you for taking your time. Alumni, I don't think they are paid. I don't know if they are paid or not, because if they're paid, I can't wait to become an alumni. But tell them thank you for taking your time to interview me. Thank you for taking your time out of your day to answer my questions, to talk to me. They didn't have to do it, they chose to do it. Be nice, be gracious. Last thing is send a thank you note, thank you email, thank you message. A few days after the interview, just email them and say, dear Mr. Mrs. So-and-so, thank you so much for the interview. I learned a lot about the university from you. I'm looking forward to hearing my application results on whatever day. Sometimes they ask to keep them posted on how it goes. One of my my interviewer for Dartmouth was so nice. She was so nice. She even helped me make a decision on like the universities I got accepted into, regardless of the fact that I didn't get into Dartmouth. She's so nice. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, keep in touch, you know. I'm in touch with my Harvard interviewer. It's so nice. And yeah, send them a thank you email. Just be grateful, be gracious that they took the time to speak to you, no matter how the events turn out. Thank you for making it to the end of my video. I'm sure it's going to be like a 25-minute long video. I've missed making long videos. I don't enjoy editing them, but that's okay. I hope you learned something from this. If you have an interview coming up soon, you can get it, you can ace it. Just make sure to be yourself, to do your best, and put your best foot forward, you know. But it's the end of the video. Thank you for watching. Subscribe. There's a red juicy button down there. We're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. You guys, literally, as I sit here, we're at 9:55 and I'm screaming. But I'm going to be calm and respectable, you know. We are chill here. See you in my next video. Okay, thanks. Bye.